Good evening, good morning, and good afternoon to everyone from around the world who is tuning in with us today. We had an overwhelming response with people registering from around the world, starting from the United States, UK, Singapore to Australia. My name is Shivaram, and I'm one of the humble volunteers of Education for All, a philanthropic organization in the United States. I would like to welcome you all to this wonderful program, from stress and anxiety to peace and happiness, using our inner strength. We are Education for All, a non-profit organization in the United States focused on providing free quality education along with the free room and boarding to underprivileged children in India. Our parent organization in India is a very large organization with over 23 residential school campuses, 3 colleges, and a university where students can learn up to master's and PhD. We have over 5,000 children getting free education. You can learn more about us on the website where you register, educationforall.co. Today, we also have 3 sponsors to this event. They are the Hindu Cultural Center of North Alabama, the Knowledge Sharing Forum, and the ICC Seniors of Tampa Bay. Thank you for your partnership to this event. As the world is suffering from the pandemic, let us also pray for the well-being of all the people in the world and hope that the situation improves soon. I remember a quote from Buddha that says, "Sorrow and misery is going to exist so long as the world exists. We cannot stop it, but we can learn to face it." In this regard, I hope today's conversation will be a learning experience to all of us. You might have heard from many gurus or philosophers on stress in life and how to attain peace and happiness. But today is different. Today you are hearing from a psychiatrist who deals with these kinds of issues day in, day out, probably in a more intensive manner. Though this conversation is no way meant to be taken as medical advice, we can still learn from this conversation. Now, without much delay, let me briefly introduce the speaker and the moderator. Our speaker, Dr. Sudarshan Suneja, is a practicing psychiatrist and diplomat of the American Board of Psychiatry and Neurology. He holds a MD and PhD. He is a visionary, a scientific spiritualist, and an inspirational and popular speaker. For the last several years, he has presented numerous talks on practical topics of spirituality. These talks have been received very well by the audience. Our moderator, Holly Esametko, is a professor of media and international affairs at Emory University, Atlanta, one of the top universities in the nation. She has received research fellowships from the German Marshall Fund of the United States and Harvard University. She is also a visiting professor at the Indian Institute of Technology, Bombay and Roorkee. Now, please relax and enjoy the program. Now, without much delay, let me call upon Dr. Holly to take over this stage from now. Dr. Holly, the floor is yours now. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Shivaram, and thank you everyone for joining. I have the good pleasure, the great privilege here to be moderating, working as today's host with an esteemed psychiatrist, Dr. Sudarshan. And so he was going to lead off, before I start asking him questions, he was going to lead off with some opening remarks for us.
Thank you, Dr. Holly. My name is Dr. Suneja. I'm a psychiatrist and a practical spiritualist. Today, I'm going to talk to you as a spiritualist and not as a psychiatrist. So my talk today is not a professional advice or opinion. Neither it's a substitute or replacement for that. And good evening, Professor Ali. It's my honor to have this opportunity to spend time with you this evening. And a hearty welcome to our audience from all over the world. Professor, I know you are a big name professor. But please know that I am a little psychiatrist. So please be easy on me when you ask me questions. Actually, I think maybe the organizer should have called this webinar a conversation between a big professor and a little psychiatrist. That would have been more appropriate, don't you think? Just for the audience, our Professor Ali is a very highly accomplished professor with more than 100 publications, which include several books, several book chapters, numerous review articles, and a lot of original publications. So with that introduction, let's start with the first question. On to you, Professor.
Good, good. Well, there are so many self-help techniques available out there to deal with stress and anxiety, such as yoga, meditation, progressive muscle relaxation, physical exercise, adequate sleep, good nutrition, and more. What is the best method, Dr. Suneja?
Thank you, Professor. It's a very good question and probably in the minds of a lot of people. But this is just like asking, there are so many foods out there, what is the best food to eat?
Huh.
Obviously, there is no one answer to both of these questions because the answer depends on several factors. Let's take the example of stress and anxiety. In this case, the best method that one can use depends on the individual characteristics. It depends on the source of the stress and the context and the circumstances. Just to give a couple of examples of the individual characteristics. For example, some people cannot meditate no matter how hard they try. Some people cannot do certain exercises because of their physical limitations.
Mm-hmm.
And some people don't like nutritious diet because it doesn't suit their taste. So it depends on the individual. However, all the techniques you mentioned, they can be grouped into two groups. In order to explain that, I will start with an example. Let's say you have a business and you are losing money in it. So you are at the left hand is my break-even point, then you are at this point, right? And you're losing money. Now, what you'd like to do, you would like to break even so that you don't lose any money. So you'll be here. This is good, but it's not good enough. You want to move from here to here. That means you want to have some positive cash flow. You want to have some profit. So similar is the situation with emotions. If my left hand represents the neutral state of neutral emotions, then when we are in stress, we are at the negative level. We are in the negative territory. If we can get rid of this stress and anxiety and bring our state to an even mood, then we'll be here. That is good, but not good enough. What we'd like to do, we'd like to move from a negative state to a positive state. And that's what today's webinar is all about. And there are several techniques available for that. So we can group these into two categories. Group one of the techniques which help us get rid of the negative emotions of stress and anxiety and bring us to an even level. Group two, they replace the negative emotions with the positive emotions, which they get us here. And there are several techniques that you mentioned, they belong to group two. And the technique that I'm going to talk today belongs to group two. It replaces our negative emotions of stress and anxiety with positive emotions of peace and happiness. And this technique is not much talked about. And it is based on using our inner strength. So that is the technique I'm going to talk about.
Well, what is this inner strength, Doctor?
Well, by inner strength, I mean the divine love that God packs into us in enormous quantity when He sends us into this world. So that's what is our inner strength.
Wow. Well, we've all heard of love, but what do you mean by divine love? How different is that from the love as we know it?
Yes. In my forthcoming book, which is titled The Amazing Secrets of Karmic Laws, volumes 1 to 4. In volume 4 of that book, I propose a 6-point scale to assess the quality of the emotions. On that scale, the human love scores anywhere from 0 to 2. The mother's love scores 3 or 4, and the divine love scores 6 out of 6. Today, we won't have time to go into the details of that. Hopefully, maybe in a future meeting, I will go into the details of what those 6 characteristics of the divine love are.
Okay, well, that's it. Really interesting, Doctor. You said earlier that God has filled each of us with this divine love in enormous quantities when we're sent into this world. But how does that happen? Can you say more about this, please?
Thank you. I will be happy to do that. Again, let me start with an example of ourselves. You know, we all have children in our audience. Most of the people have children, and we love our children. Now, but when we have grandchildren, and those who have that experience, and I have that first-hand experience, we know that we love them more than our children. And maybe 2 times more, 3 times more, 4 times more, it depends. But to be on the conservative side, let's say we love 2 times. We love double them than we love our children. Now, if we have great-grandchildren, we will love them even double we love our grandchildren, which will be 4 times we love our children. Let's say we are lucky enough to have great-great-grandchildren. We'll love double of that, which means we love them 8 times we love our children. So we kind of arriving at a formula. If I live long enough to see my 5th generation down, I would love them 2 times, 2 times, 2 times, 5 times. That is 32 times I love my children. If I live long enough to see my 10th generation, I will love them 2 times, 2 times, 2 times, 10 times, which will be 1024. Let's round it to 1,000. So what I'm saying is, if we live long enough to see our 10th generation, we love them 1,000 times we love our children. Now, I'm going to get into some more numbers. And those of you in the audience who don't like numbers, please don't worry, because at the end of the numbers, I'm going to summarize them without numbers. Okay. So what I have said so far, if we see our 10th generation, we love our 10th generation 1,000 times more than we love our children. Now, let's say if we live long enough to see our 20th generation, then we love them 1,000 times 1,000. That is a million times we love our children. If we live long enough to see our 30th generation down, we'll love them 1,000 times of that, which is 1,000 times a million, which is a billion times. And if we live long enough to see our 40th generation, we'll love them 1,000 times of that, which will be 1 trillion times we love our children. Okay, so that is the formula. Now, according to the latest scientific estimates, the human species is 200,000 years old. And we are all children of God. So if we assume that every 25 years a new generation comes along, then we are the 8,000th generation of God. Okay, now imagine how much God loves us. Every 40th generation will love trillion times we love our children. So it will be trillion times, multiply 200 times. So that much love he packs into us when he sends us into this world. So basically it is an inexhaustible amount of love. We can use as much as we want to, we will never ever run out of it. So that's what I meant when I said the God packs into us enormous amount of divine love. So that's what it is.
Well, I must say, Doctor, this is really impressive. If we have this much divine love within us, when we are born, why don't we use it for our benefit?
It's a very good question, isn't it? It's a very practical question. That kind of reminds me of a story. I'll tell you the story first, and that will take us the answer to your question. Once a tigress was crossing a river with her cub on her back. And in that swift current, the tigress was wiped away. She was carried away. But the cub somehow managed to reach the other shore. So when he landed on the other shore, there was a flock of sheep. So he joined them, and he started to live among them, started to behave like a sheep, started to bleat like them, and everything was fine. He was happy. One day, a tiger attacked that flock of sheep for prey, and he was surprised to see a cub in there. So he went to him. He said, "Hey, what are you doing here?" He said, "I'm a sheep." Tiger said, "No, you are not." He said, "No, I'm a sheep." So Tiger said, "Well, this guy won't agree to me." So he picked him up and brought him to a pond. And then he said, "Hey, look in the water. Look, see who you are. Do you look like me or do you look like those sheep?" So the cub looked in the water and he said, "Yes, I look like you." So then say, "Come with me." So the tiger took him and then started living with the tigers. So we are like that because we are actually divine beings full of divine love, so much divine love that I just explained. But because we are born and we live in the people who are behaving like humans, so we start behaving like humans also. We forget our strength. However, there's a one important difference from the story of the cub. The cub was surrounded by sheep, so that's why he was behaving like sheep. We are divine. We are surrounded by divine people. Everybody else around us divine, but they think they are not divine. That's why we also start thinking like that and we behave like that. So that is the reason we don't use that divine love, because we are not aware that we have divine love in us. That is the reason we are not using it.
Yeah. Doctor, this leads to my next question. How can we use this divine love to our advantage?
Very good question. It's a very practical question, isn't it? We can have all the love we have, but if we don't use it, then it doesn't do us any good. Mm-hmm. Let me again start with another example. Let's say, Professor, you are going for shopping, okay? And I slip into your purse certain amount of cash without your knowledge. You don't know. So you go for shopping. Will you be able to benefit from that money, the cash in your purse? No, isn't it? Because you don't know that there is a cash in your purse, isn't it?
Yeah.
So in order to benefit from that cash, you need to know or do three things. First, you need to know there is cash in your purse. Okay. Secondly, you need to know how much cash is there so that you have your budget, because then you can decide whether you can buy expensive jewelry from Macy's or you can buy just a t-shirt from Walmart. So you will know your budget. You have to know how much money is there. But the third thing you have to do, you have to spend that money. You can have all the money in your purse. If you don't spend it, you're not going to get any benefit from it, isn't it? So the same three things apply to this divine love also. In order to benefit from it, we need to know and do three things. First, we need to know that we have divine love in us. And a lot of us didn't know until about 5 minutes ago, until I told you so. Now you know that we have divine love. That's the first thing. Second thing, we need to know how much love we have. Isn't it? How much love we can spend. So I also answered for you. We have inexhaustible amount of this divine love in us. We can spend all we want to. we will never ever run out of it. So that is our budget of divine love. Okay. The third requirement is we have to spend this love in order to benefit from that, isn't it? Unless we spend this love, we won't get any benefit from that. So that's how we can benefit from it. Next question.
Thank you. These are amazing arguments and calculations that you've told us how much divine love God has filled us with at birth. It's like deriving a formula in the sciences, except researchers would try to prove it actually with data. So I guess my next question is, what kind of data might you have to provide us with in support of your calculations?
Wow, what a question. That's what I was scared of. I knew, Professor, you are so bright, so you will throw a curveball at me at some point or another. Now, this is not an easy question to answer, isn't it? Because I want to tell you, and you probably already know, that the spirituality doesn't work like science. In spirituality, there are no numbers, there is no data, isn't it? Mostly it is by intuition. And but since you asked the question, so I think you expect an answer, right? So you want me to provide data. Okay. Well, let me think, because I have to a little bit think. I didn't think that you will ask this kind of a question, difficult question. Okay, so you want data, correct? I need to provide data. Okay, so let me give you an example of human body. Let's take example, human body. Okay, because I'm a physician, so I deal with the humans. In an adult human body, there are about 100 trillion cells in one adult human body, but 100 trillion cells. In each cell, continuously chemical reactions go on. Hundreds of chemical reactions. Could be 100, 200, 300, 400. But let's say let's take a conservative number. Let's say there are 120 reactions occurring every hour. Okay. So again, for those of you who don't like numbers, please don't worry. I will again summarize at the end without numbers. Okay. So if we assume 120 reactions go on every hour, there will be 120 multiplied by 100. That will be 12,000 trillion reactions going on in our body every hour. Now, there are how many hours in a year? There are 24 hours in a day, 365 days in a year. So you multiply that, it will come to about 8,800, close to that anyway. Okay, so there are 8,800 hours in 1 year. So if you multiply the 12,000 by 8,800, so it comes to 100 million. So there are 100 million trillion reactions going on in our body every year. Okay, now, each reaction that occurs in our body represents more than the love of our mother, because our mother cannot even make one reaction to go on normally, not even one. It is beyond her capacity, beyond her capability. It's only the divine love which can make these reactions go on smoothly, minute after minute, hour after hour, day after day, and year after year. So the 100 million trillion reactions go on every year represent the love of more than 100 million trillion mothers. And over a period of 10 years, it adds up to 1 billion trillion mothers' love. So that much love God has given us. Now, this is just one example. Besides the chemical reaction, there are so many other things going on in the cells. There are electrical phenomena going on in the cell. Then there's a coordination of one cell with another. And then there's a control mechanism and so many things. Each one of those represents the love of trillions and trillions of mothers. So here is the data you were asking for. I hope it answers your question.
That's awesome, Doctor. Frankly, I didn't expect you'd be able to provide actual data, but you did a remarkable job. So thank you. I have one other question here on divine love. You mentioned earlier that we have to spend this divine love. So can you explain more about how we can spend this divine love?
Yes, that is the key question, isn't it? We talked about we can have all the divine love in us, but if we don't spend, it's not going to benefit us at all. So how do we spend this love? What we need to do is we need to fill every word and every action of ours with this divine love. Every word and every action. Now, this is a humongous task, isn't it? And if I say, hey, I want to accomplish this, I'll be discouraged. I cannot do it, so I better not even try. And so what do we do in this case? Let me give you another example. Let's say if I want to lose 50 pounds weight, that sounds like a lot of weight that I have to lose, isn't it? So what do I need to do? Instead of worrying 50 pounds, I need to break it down to smaller steps. I need to focus on losing 5 pounds at a time. So I need to focus first. I need to lose 5 pounds. Simple. When I lose 5 pounds, I can pat on my back. Then, okay, I want to lose 5 pounds more. So 5 pounds at a time in 10 steps, I'll be able to reach my goal, losing 50 pounds. The same is the situation here. To fill every word and every action with divine love is a humongous task. So we have to break it down into smaller tasks and then work on those. For example, I'll give you one example how I have done it for myself, how I have broken down this huge task into 10 smaller steps. But this is just an example. And depending on your temperament, depending on your preferences and other factors, situations, you can subdivide big tasks into your own way. Okay, so what I will do first, I first start with the people I go for service. Like say our spiritual center has service activities, go there and we serve people there. So I started that. I will fill my words and actions with them with the divine love when I deal with them. Number one, first step. And when I accomplish that, and not only accomplishing, it means we have to get to a point where it should become a second nature, where it will become an automatic behavior so that we don't have to think about it. So that when we go to serve these people, automatically, without thinking, our words and actions should be full of divine love, period. Mm-hmm. That's when we will assume that we have achieved that goal. First step. Okay, so it may take 6 months, it may take 1 year, depends on the individual. Okay, then we go on the second step. Then I will extend it to my immediate family, that is to my children and to my spouse and to my parents. Okay, then I will extend it to my relatives. Then next I will extend to my friends. Next I will extend it to my colleagues. Each one represents one step, and like I said, each one may take varying amount of time. Next, I will extend it to acquaintances, my people I don't know. Okay, so we don't stop there. Next, we will extend it to all the inanimate things, other animate things such as animals, birds, and all those. The next step will be to extend it to inanimate things such as the nature, the air, the water, the plants. And you may say, well, what does loving plants means? Or what does loving air means? What does loving water means? Or what does loving resources means? What it means that we need to use the resources efficiently without wasting any. We need to use air without polluting it. We need to conserve water without wasting it and not without unnecessarily polluting it. And same thing about the plants. We need to conserve them and not destroy them unnecessarily. So that is loving them means. So when we break down this humongous task into smaller steps, we can really fill our every word and every action with this divine love. So that's how we will spend it. And the nice thing is that God has packed enormous, it's inexhaustible amount of this love into us, no matter how much we use. And we can use profusely as we want. we will never run out of it. So we don't have to worry about that.
Wow. Fascinating. Doctor, have you used this approach in your life then? And what success would you say you've had?
Yes, I have used, because generally I have given several spiritual talks. Before that, I used to give professional talks. And so when I give spiritual talks, I generally talk about things which I have experienced myself or experimented on myself and see whether it works or not. And sometimes I try something, it doesn't work, then I'll modify that. And when I find this work, then only that way I will present. So here I'll give you an example. I've used this approach of using divine love in my words and actions for the last 30 years. And I will share a couple of experiences for you because of limitation of time. I won't stay more than that. My first experience is that, psychiatry is a very stressful profession. We deal with the patient's emotional problems every day, okay, day after day. So it can be very emotional, a very stressful profession. And a lot of our colleagues, which include social workers, psychologists, even other psychiatrists have asked me, hey, how do you manage the stress? You look so calm and relaxed. And I just pass it off because I don't want to sound them, hey, I'm giving a sermon. And a lot of people don't believe in God and all that. So I don't like to impose my opinions on anyone. So this technique that I've used over the years, it has helped me tremendously to deal with my anxiety and stress. Of course, like I mentioned earlier, that we have to use a variety of techniques. It's like a balanced diet. In a balanced diet, you have to eat different kinds of food, and so that you balance it. Same way here, that is the balanced diet is to deal with our physical health. But when we want to deal with our mental health, the similar approach applies. We have to use multiple techniques. For example, I've used this technique with exercise, regular exercise, adequate sleep, good nutritious diet. So when you combine these, then you get the full benefit. So that's one example how this technique has helped me. The second example, I'll give you a specific patient, long time ago, when I was in my residency. And then we had to rotate, clinical rotation, into different psychiatry residency, different hospitals. So I was working in the VA hospital, and there was a rotation of 2 or 3 months. So during this rotation, we had to stay in the hospital, in the doctor's room, which was on the top floor, which was on the 10th or 11th floor of the building. And so at night, we used to stay there. And at the ground level, on the first floor, there was the emergency room and the other nurse's office. So one night, they called me, doctor, there's a patient we would like you to see. So I came down, and a patient was must be around, I would say, 30 or early 30s, and he was sitting in one of the exam rooms. And of course, only veterans come to VA hospital. He was sitting there, so I walked into the room. And generally, in a psychiatric emergency room, there's always security with us because you never know when the patient may get aggressive or agitated. So there is for our protection. So the security person was standing there. So the moment I stepped into the room, the patient became irate. He was a Vietnam veteran. He became irate. He started shouting at me, hey, you guys, you come to this country, you caused me all my problems, and he was calling all kinds of names and letting his anger out at me. I just sat quietly on the chair, which is feet away from him, listening to him. Said nothing. So after 20 minutes, once he said whatever he wanted to let his anger out, he was quiet. Then I said calmly, I knew his name, I don't remember. I said, Mr. Yes, can I say something now? Yeah, I said. I said, okay, I understand you are angry at me, right? He said, yes. I said, but I want to let you know that it was not my fault at all. Okay? I'm here to help you. okay, to deal with his anger and whatever problems you have. I said, you are a victim of the conflict between the politicians of two countries. And the guys like you and me are both helpless. We have no say into this. We may not like this at all. As you may know, the Vietnam War was very unpopular in this country. Okay. And so there were a lot of protests and all that. So, and he was a victim of that. He was a Vietnam veteran. So I said, yes, I understand. And I said, I can understand your feelings. If I was in your place, I would feel the same way, exactly what you're feeling. So I don't blame you. It's not your fault. Okay. And I can empathize with you. I can understand with you. So I dealt with him with a lot of love and compassion. What happened? He melted. He started crying and apologizing. Doctor, I'm sorry. I didn't mean to hurt your feelings. I'm so sorry. Forgive me. And he started asking for forgiveness and all that. And I said, don't worry at all. You don't have to say that. I'm doing my job, and my job is to help you. And I will do everything in my whatever I have available resources to help you. And that from then on, he was totally calm and worked with me nicely, no problem. So here is an example where you can treat, where you can deal, or you can handle a very angry person with love. So this is an example. So I think those two examples hopefully will suffice.
Mm-hmm. Well, that's just fascinating. I have just a few more questions to ask you, Doctor, and I'll ask these quickly so that we can move on to questions from our audience. My first question is, when we fill our words and our actions with divine love, other people will benefit from it. But could you discuss what benefit we would derive?
Yes. You see, when you give love to others, they will give you same amount of love, if not any more than that. So you get the love back. And love is when the love and stress and anxiety are incompatible. Love is a positive feeling and stress is a negative feeling, so they're incompatible. Once you get the love back, your stress will go away. Okay? Because love and respect are two of the few things in life which you have to give in order to get them. So that's the nice thing about it. You will not get love from others unless you give them. So that's our benefit in this. When we give love to others, okay, they will return the same love and respect back to us, probably in greater quantity than we have given them. So that is our benefit. That's how this approach works. However, let me explain this. I have used the word divine love. Okay. Now, today we don't have time to explain to you, but the full benefit from this technique you will only get if you use divine love. If you use the ordinary love, human love, you will get only a small fraction of this benefit. And unfortunately, we don't have time today, but hopefully another time I will explain to you. There will be a subject of one full conversation like this, where I will explain what are the characteristics of those divine love and how each characteristics help us in helping getting the benefit out of this technique. So that is the benefit we get from using this approach.
Thank you. That's fascinating. You've given us an excellent discussion here on inner strength, and it's been given to us in a very easy to understand, very interesting manner, and how we can use it to our advantage as well. And this has really sparked my curiosity. Yet inner strength is only a third of the session's title for today, and we still need to discuss the last 2/3 of the session's title. So that's what my final questions are wrapped up in. And then we'll turn to Q&A after you speak and summarize. I think you may want to summarize later. Could you explain the difference between stress and anxiety and how they harm us both physically and mentally? And could you also explain the difference between peace and happiness and how they help us physically and mentally?
Thank you, Professor. I was right that you are very brilliant. Only a brilliant and inquisitive mind, analytical mind, can analyze a title like this. into three components. And these are very bright, very brilliant questions. Hopefully, maybe another time, another talk, because these are subjects of two, each one of them for one full talk. So to answer your two questions, it will require two talks like this. And hopefully, if there's enough interest from the audience, we will be able to do that. Okay. All right. So I think, do you have any further questions for me? Otherwise, I will summarize the key points. Okay. All right. First of all, thank you all of our guests for being here. And I want to summarize our closing comments so that the key points. Once again, I would like to remind you that we have to use multiple techniques and not depend on any one particular technique, no matter how good it is. This is just like eating a balanced diet. I already mentioned that. Secondly, that this is important to know that many times these self-help techniques may not be sufficient to deal with our anxiety or stress. So in that case, at that point, we should seek the help of a mental health professional help. So we should not hesitate to seek professional help. So that's the second point. Thirdly, again, a reminder that, as I said in the beginning, that my talk is not a substitute or replacement for a professional opinion or advice, and neither it constitutes one either. So I've shared with you a technique based on spiritual principles to manage stress and anxiety, but I have presented to you in a scientific way. That means that we have proven by logic and provided the data, what I said, to support that. And you can feel free to use this divine love as freely as you want to, no worry at all. Okay. And like I said earlier, fourthly, I hope in a future meeting, I will be able to discuss with you the characteristics of the divine love so that you can use that to get the full benefit from this technique. Okay. Dear audience, I have one more request from you. I'm fully aware that there is always room to improve. So in order to improve future webinars, I would like to have your feedback and suggestions without taking too much of your time. And for this purpose, the organizer will send you a brief evaluation form by email. And please take a minute or two to answer those questions. They won't take much time. And that will help me to improve my future webinar. Or you can also put in that evaluation form any topics of interest that you would like to hear on. And then we can, choose from those also in future. Okay. So thank you all and God bless you all. Okay. Now, before I turn it on to our distinguished professor, I would like to say a few words about our sponsoring organizations. All these organizations are doing a wonderful job of serving the society, but in different ways. So, Professor will talk about these organizations, but I'll just take one example, okay, and I'll just briefly describe the kind of work they are doing. Okay, I will talk about the Education for All, what work they are doing. Now we are all aware of the pain and suffering this COVID has caused us and still causing us. But do you know that, and COVID has killed so far, according to the latest numbers, about 3.9 million people so far in a year and a half. So it has killed about 2.6 million people a year. But do you know, and that hunger kills a lot more people than this. According to the UN data, 9 million people die every year of hunger and hunger-related diseases. Out of that, 3 million are children. And what is the cause of hunger? The cause of hunger is the poverty. And what is the cause of poverty? That is lack of education. So, if we provide education, we can eradicate poverty, we can eradicate hunger, and prevent all these preventable deaths from hunger. And as a physician, I can tell you that death from hunger is not easy. It's a very slow, very difficult death. It's not an easy death. Okay, so these people are suffering a lot. And that's what education overall is doing. It is supporting schools for children who are from families whose parents cannot afford to provide them food, even 3 meals a day, clothes, let alone education, because of course they have no money to pay for tuition. And the schools that education overall is supporting, they meet all their needs. They have hostels, so they provide them a clean place to stay and a simple but nutritious food to eat, and a lot of love from their teachers so that they can study in this loving environment. And look at the result. Last year, and considering these students come from a background where they lived in huts, they had running water, they had no electricity, nothing. They come from that background. And last year, one of their students was #1 in the entire state, top the entire state. So these are students who are willing to learn, but they didn't have the opportunity. So that's the kind of work they are doing. Now on to you, Professor.
Well, thank you very much. That's very moving information you gave us there on COVID and hunger, as well as on what's happening with some of the outcomes on the students sponsored by Education for All, which organized this event. I'd like to just say a few words about and thank our 3 main sponsors for this event. One is the Hindu Cultural Center of North Alabama, which was founded in 1995 in Huntsville, Alabama, and it provides a full range of religious, spiritual, and cultural activities to well over 700 families. The temple provides a place of worship for the followers of Hinduism and a forum for scholarly discussions of the Hindu philosophy. It also facilitates the celebration of various Indian festivals in authentic style. The temple also engages in other activities such as classes for language, the Bhagavad Gita, meditation, and yoga. It also participates in service activities helping the needy in the area. At present, the temple remains open daily based on CDC guidelines, and devotees can also do puja and abhishekam by Facebook Live and by Zoom. Another sponsor, also in Alabama, the Huntsville Knowledge Sharing Forum, KSF, I'll use that abbreviation, was formed in 2010 by a group of enthusiasts in Huntsville, Alabama, who felt the need for an exchange of ideas and wisdom among interested residents on a variety of topics related to the mind, body, and spirit. KSF is dedicated to bringing diverse communities together for enlightened discussions about life and spirituality. With the persistent efforts and the hard work of the late Dr. Shrikant Rao, KSF has grown to its present membership of 135 families, meeting every other Tuesday for about 2 hours. Each presentation starts with a Vedic invocation and ends with a short Q&A. KSF also publishes a newsletter regularly on interesting topics. And so far, those have included discussions on God and self-realization, various religions such as Christianity, Judaism, Islam, Baha'i, Buddhism, Jainism, and Hinduism, as well as on other topics such as allopathic and herbal medicine, human psychology, and historical biographies of great women and men, and more. Our third sponsor, not in any particular order, it's just the order in which I'm reading it to you, is the India Community Center of Seniors of Tampa Bay. I'm abbreviating that here with ICCS, Community Center Seniors of Tampa Bay. It's a nonprofit, like-minded group of Indian seniors. It started as a friendly get-together group about 20 years ago. It does not have any formal structure, no president, nor any office bearers. And ICCS usually meets on the third Wednesday of the month from 11:30 to about 3 p.m. The program includes the introduction of new guests, a short prayer, a warm-up exercise, and a presentation on a topic of interest to seniors. This is followed by a delicious, freshly prepared lunch by volunteers. And the 90-minute program, which is free to all, ends with a performance by professional musicians from the area. About 150 to 200 seniors from around the world currently living in Tampa and nearby areas attend, and visitors are welcome to attend. So please visit and enjoy the program at ICCS. If you happen to be in Tampa, in the Tampa Bay area on the third Wednesday of each month. Now I'd like to say something about the organizer of this session, which is Education for All, which supports the provision of quality education free of charge to children, irrespective of their caste, their religion, or any other background. And for those in need, room and board, clothing, educational materials are also provided free of cost. Education for All partners with the Prashanti Balamandira Trust, which currently supports over 5,000 students across 23 residential campuses in India. Primary projects for us now include the construction and maintenance of 2 campuses, one campus for girls and another campus for boys. So with state-of-the-art facilities, which I can tell you about, I've been there to one. These include, for example, computer and science labs, sports grounds, spacious classrooms, modern dormitories, I should say, highly qualified teachers, a meditation center, and a wholesome environment. And I want to also mention, it also includes musical instruction. And I've seen full orchestras performing from these schools. It's really impressive. And each campus also has a distinctive design. So Education for All is a nonprofit organization based in the US, part of a 501c3 organization. And to learn more, you can visit the website at educationforall.co. I personally visited one of the 23 residential campuses supported by Education for All, and it was a really special visit for me. It was really moving. It was a facility, it was a residential campus for young women, and the campus was beautiful. The staff and students were very impressive. The facilities were excellent. I had a wonderful experience. So if you want to arrange a visit, you should just let us know through the website, because we can help to arrange a visit for you once things calm down on the COVID front. I want to share with you in closing a story from a 12-year-old girl, Akshaya, who tells her story on the Education for All website. And I'm going to try not to tear up, because I do every time I read her story or tell her story. She said, "Because my mom gave birth to 3 girls, my father left her and married another woman. So we stayed with our grandmother at her house. My mother was doing daily wage labor to make an effort to raise the 3 of us. There was no electricity at our house. So I used to read as soon as I came home from school in the daylight only. My mother would go to daily labor and come home late, so I had to take care of my sisters." So we at Education for All came to know about Akshaya, and she was admitted to one of our campuses, and all of her costs, including tuition, room and board, educational materials, clothing, everything provided free of charge. There are more stories like hers, but I'm afraid that to me was one of the most moving stories, but there are many other incredible stories from some of the bright and remarkable children in need who are being helped by Education for All on the website. If you would like to support this noble cause of helping underprivileged children, including those children who have been orphaned due to COVID-19, please visit the Education for All website and click on the link Participate. Now I'd like to turn to the questions from the audience who sent them in registration or put them up in the chat. We have had dozens of questions from the audience. So I'd like to ask you, Doctor, are you ready for some questions from the audience?
Yes, I am. I hope they're not difficult ones.
Okay. Okay. The first one from India. How can someone forget the past to make the future bright?
It's a very good question and very common question, isn't it? But the answer to this question depends on the individual. It depends on what you're trying to forget, okay? And also depends on the context. And I will relate to you one story briefly of one of my patients, okay? Very interesting. And here is the story. I had a patient several years ago, and she was, I would say, around maybe 60 years old. And so she was brought to the hospital with her husband brought her to the emergency room, and I saw her. And he brought her because she was getting suicidal. She wanted to commit suicide. She was getting so depressed. So I talked to her and she refused to talk because it's not uncommon for psychiatric patients who have undergone difficult time not to trust anyone, including their healthcare provider. So she won't talk. And I said, that's all right. So because she was suicidal, so she was admitted on the ward. So that day she was there. And next day I talked to her again and she opened up a little bit. She told me, I want to get a background, what was making her depressed. So then on the third day, she described the whole story. She could trust me. Again, it's because of the love, with how I dealt with her, she was able to develop trust in me very quickly. So on the third day, she described the whole story. I'll summarize it. She said that when her husband was a politician, local politician, very nice guy, but very assertive. I think the politician has to be that way. So she was working as secretary when she got married. And he told her, hey, you don't need to work, it's fine, I can earn enough. So she was okay with that. She quit her job and she was staying with him. And she said after a few days, her husband's father passed away. So he, being a good son, he bought her mother a house next to his so that his mother could stay next to their house. She said, okay, the mother moved there, but mother was also like that, very assertive and controlling. So she subdued her daughter-in-law. And so she became more and more depressed and more and more depressed, and finally came to this level. And I said, okay. I said, where is your mother-in-law? She says, she's dead. She's gone. I said, how many years ago? 20 years ago. I said, what?
Yeah.
She got 20 years ago? Yes, she got 20 years ago. I said, look, it is, and you are saying that she was living next door to you, right? Okay, that's why you're depressed. I said, look, it is not the physical distance that matters. It's the mental distance that matters. See, your mother is gone, far away, but you are still keeping her in your mind next to you. So in your mind, she's still next to you, living there. That's what is making you depressed. So what you need to do is you have to think that, look, she's gone. She cannot affect you anymore. Suddenly, it's like light bulb lit up. She said, doctor, that makes a lot of sense. So left her at that. That session was over. And then her husband used to visit her every day. So next morning he came and he will want to talk to me individually to find out. He said, doctor, what did you do? I said, why? What did you? You did a magic. You did a magic with her. She's a totally different person. She's not suicidal anymore. She's cheerful. She was smiling, which she has not done for a long time. And so he said, he was more concerned. Doctor, do you think she will stay like that? I said, well, we'll have to wait and see. And she may need some more help, but we'll have to see. So she was in the hospital a couple of more days, not suicidal anymore, cheerful, fine. So she was sent home. And then I continued to follow her, I think, for a year. She continued to do well, no problems. And so then after that, I told her and husband, I don't need to see her. And so she can go to some other doctor close to you. And so that's the story. That is an example how we can forget, answer the question things, but depends on the content of thing, what you want to forget, depends on the person's personality, characteristics, and all that. Okay?
Yes.
Let's go on to the next question, please.
Yes. A next question is from Singapore. Could you address how kids can gain more positivity from all that is happening around them?
Yeah, it's a good question. Actually, why kids? Why even adults? Adults, both adults and kids can learn a lot from this. Of course, it has caused a lot of pain and suffering. There are a lot of lessons that we can learn. Of course, I cannot go over all of them, but I'll just take one example. I'll give you one example. One of the big lessons that we can learn from this is that we have to understand that we are a part of this one joint family of God. The whole world is one joint family. We cannot move away. We may think that some of us, okay, were born in India, then some of us moved to Singapore, some of them came to US, some of them went to UK. So we think we have moved away from our joint family. That is a human joint family. But from the God's joint family, we cannot move away. We are a part of it no matter what. The only way to move out of that family, joint family, is when we leave this body, when we leave this world. And I don't think anybody wants that. So we have to realize that all of us in this world are part of one joint family. So we have to care for each other, and we have to care for the comforts, not try to harm anyone, not try to hurt anyone. So this is one very important lesson that we can learn from this COVID calamity.
Thank you, Doctor.
Of course.
A third question comes from Sri Lanka. Stress and anxiety comes with everything when everything is fine with each individual. Why?
Isn't it? This is an interesting question, because to a lay person, it may sound like that. You may see one person, he's very anxious, but say, hey, nothing is wrong around him. Everything is fine. Why is he getting anxious? Okay, so here is what it is. The anxiety or stress mainly come from two sources. One is the external sources, which we can see. Because, like in this question, you cannot see anything stressful or anxiety provoking going on around. And second is the internal factors, internal event that is occurring in our mind that can make it anxious or depressed or stressful. And those we cannot see. So other people cannot see what is going on in somebody's mind. And here the first question, when I gave the example of my patient, that's what was going on with her. Outside, everything was fine. She had a nice house. Her husband was providing her all the comforts. But the events which were going on inside her mind, that they were making her depressed. So that's how mind works. Mind is, people think mind is a lot more complicated than the body. And just to give you an example, there are about 100,000 genes in our body. And out of that, 25,000 genes are only for the mind alone. 25,000 genes. And mind, what is mind? Mind is a part of the brain. Not the entire brain is mind. There is a mind part of the brain, there's a non-mind part of the brain. So I'm talking about just the mind part of the brain, which is probably weighs no more than a pound or pound and a half. That's it. 25,000 genes. That's why no two people ever think alike and will ever think alike, no matter what. We can have billions and billions of people from the beginning of the world. No two people ever thought alike. That is the reason. There is so much variation which is possible with those 25,000 genes. Okay, next question, please.
So thank you. We've heard from the Netherlands. I'm interested to give guidance on this issue in my country. You have
So it's not a question, but it's a good idea, and wish you all the good luck to you in your efforts. Okay, thank you. Next question, please.
Okay, from the UK, we have, how do we stay happy in stressful periods?
Yeah. Very important question, isn't it? That's what everyone would like people to answer. We talked one technique today, but the answer to this question is a full topic. And sometime in future, I will talk about what really causes us unhappiness. And therefore, we'll get to the real solution. Okay, so this was a too big a question to answer today. I'm sorry for that, but it's a very practical, very useful question.
So we have another question. How can one control the scattering mind and find inner peace in today's world when we live in the Kali Yuga? Is there a simple practice or a system that we can use?
Yes, good question. And scattering mind is always wandering. That is the nature of the mind, always. And so if you want to control it, focus it, one technique is a meditation, and that's a good thing. But I think that will be topic of another subject of another conversation, because there's a lot of misunderstanding about meditation. And we are taught meditation, we go to meditation classes and all that. And how we are taught, we have played some music in the background, and we are supposed to visualize this thing, that thing. But that is one way. But that's not the original proper way to meditate. Imagine those rishis who lived in Himalayas, and they still live there. Do they have any MP3 there? Do they have any cassette player there or CD player? No. If that what was needed to do meditation, they could never meditate. They have been meditating for thousands of years. So the true meditation does not require any of these things. It's a very simple thing, and sometime we'll talk about that. But meditation is one. And of course, I'm not saying all these techniques that are taught with the music and all that, they do good. I'm not saying that. You please continue to do those. Okay, but there is a simpler way to do it also. And but it's good to have different ways of doing the same thing, and then you can pick the method of your choice that appeals to you. So that's all I'm saying. So all these methods are right, they're correct, and but there are different ways to meditate. Okay, next question.
I have another two more questions here if time permits. One is, what are the effects of stress and anxiety on the human body and on people in the family?
It's a very good question. In fact, this is a question you asked, Professor, at the end, right? So this question, like I said, it requires a full talk where I can describe the chemical effects on the body, what happens in the terms of chemicals in our body, and how they affect our body and mind. And it's a kind of rather very interesting topic, but it requires a kind of full session to discuss that.
Okay, we're going to look forward to a full session. Another full session. So I have one other question here, two more questions here. One is some of the problems of old age are dependency, restrictions on activities, and losing your control. These conditions use anxiety and stress. How can one stay happy under these conditions?
Yes, good question. I think it's a very relevant question because I know several people, in that age group are attending. And so the answer depends on lots of things. It depends on what is the physical status of the individual, what are the resources available, what are the other things going on in life, what is the context, what is the situation. So it depends on that. Okay, but there are several things one can do. I'll just mention only one today. One of the things is acceptance, that we learn to accept the reality. As we get older, we cannot do certain things, so we have to accept that. We have to live with this, and we have to adjust it and work around it. So it is one of the things, but there are other things also that can be done to meet this goal. But because of the lack of time, we cannot get into those things, but I thought I'll just mention one example: acceptance.
Okay.
The reality.
Final question, which I'd like to follow up on. When the questioner asks, when can we get your books? We are eagerly waiting to read them. I mean, could you tell us more about your books?
Awesome. That's my favorite question.
Okay.
And whoever asked that question made my day. And I would like to end our today's conversation with this question because it leaves me in a good mood. Well, my books are all, there are 4 volumes in that book. And the title, like I said, is the Amazing Secrets of Karmic Laws, volumes 1 to 4. And I have done my part, I've done my writing, and now they're being edited. So basically, it all depends on the editor. How soon the editor can finish editing the books will be published. And they'll be published on Amazon, and you will be all notified, and probably a month beforehand, because that time I will have an idea that, okay, the book should be ready by then, and the books will be available, and all the receipts from these books, net proceeds from this book will be used for the helping the poor and the needy. I'm not keeping any money from this because I think that God has helped me a lot. He has guided me to write this book, so it is all his efforts. And so all the net proceeds belong to his children, these poor and needy children who would need help. So that's how it will be. And so you will know a month before, and the books are available for publication. And I think Amazon allows to pre-order the books also. So you'll be able to pre-order. Okay, that's
So
a good
much.
question that made my day. And let's end our conversation here. How about that?
So much, Doctor. This has been a fascinating conversation. I hope everyone's enjoyed it. Does Shivaram want to have anything more to say to close today's
Thank
session?
you. Thank you, Professor.
Thank you. Thank you.
Well, yeah, thank you, Dr. Sudarshan, for the wonderful talk and insight into how to achieve happiness and peace of mind. It is I don't have any words. We got to hear a new perspective today, divine love. We are really looking forward to hearing more talks and insights in the future. Thank you, Dr. Hawley, for wonderfully moderating the program and taking time from your busy schedule. Thank you all, the sponsors, sponsoring organizations, for your partnership and for promoting the event. Thank you, the Hindu Cultural Center of North Alabama. Thank you, Knowledge Sharing Forum, and thank you, ICC Seniors of Tampa Bay. And thank you, everyone around the world joining this event. And next steps, as requested by Dr. Sudarshan, we will send you a feedback form via email. Based on your responses, we will decide on future events. We'll continue to bring in many more webinars on various topics of interest. Please visit our website at educationfor.co. Again, www.educationforall.co to learn more about our noble cause. If you'd like to participate, please click on the Participate tab on the website. I wish everyone a wonderful weekend, and thank you all once again for tuning in with us.
Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you, everyone.
Thank you.
Thank you. Bye.
Thank you.